Awesome.
Oh, hello there, Facebook world. Back here today. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. It looks like my levels are pretty good. Very happy to have Victoria Eloise back in the house today. We had a great show last week where we were talking about Annie Huntress Lamont. So, we're going to take a deeper dive today into the Democratic Party. Who is the Democratic Party? And it's so nice to have Victoria Eloise live with me again. I love this woman. Here she is. Hey. Um,
Hello.
you for all that you're doing and all the research that you've been doing and diving deep with some great information and sharing that with us. I really appreciate that a lot.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. And you are no slouch in the research game, you know? I learned stuff from you, the posts or the things you tag me in, really, the things you research. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And so let's just do a little recap. I'm going to pull her picture up. So we're going to be looking at her for a second. Remember Annie Huntress Lamont from last week, guys? Where you did you tune in? We have that show is archived on YouTube, so you can find that. I should have put that in the links. Next time I will do that. But you can find that show on YouTube where we talked about Annie Huntress Lamont. Well, this woman is the top venture capitalist in the world, I want to say. I mean, I haven't read anyone else that was topping her. How about you, Victoria?
You know, I haven't I haven't done a ton of research on the venture capital world. That's like I don't speak that language. I'm pretty poor, so it's like but from what I've read about her, she's the top of the top. Yes.
So she's the top of the top. So there she is, Annie Huntress Lamont, which I like to say that she's like the governor. And we went down a journey with her and what she did with close to $1 billion, where she just was able to ship it out to the Cayman Islands, guys. And this is all in last week's show. We're just kind of doing a little recap to as we take a dive into the who is the Democratic Party. So, what were you digging into this week, Victoria?
You know, firstly, I consider myself pretty well read, I like knowledge, but I really did not know the Democratic propaganda game is so on point. I really didn't know a lot of this information and so what prompted this for me is I was watching the news and I'm not a big CNN fan, but I like to listen to all perspectives. And every time I was on CNN, there was people saying, get out and vote, get out and vote, get out and vote. And it just felt like too early. It felt odd. So I was like, you know what? I don't really know a whole lot about the Democratic Party. So off I went.
Off you.
I watched four historical documentaries this weekend. One of them I posted. Phenomenal. The hyperlink is in the post. It's called Hillary's um, Hillary's America:
Hillary.
The Secret History of the Democratic Party.
Interesting. So,
Unbelievable.
so what we're gonna so should I pull up the Facebook post so we can go through those slides?
Yeah.
So guys, if you want to follow Victoria, you can find her right on Facebook and YouTube. She is on Twitter, guys, out there too. I don't have your Twitter handle right in front of me. Do you have that off the top of your head for Twitterland? No, we'll get that.
No, I made a Twitter like 10. I don't really. I know how to use it. But oh, here it is. Then Eloise.
All right, at Ven.
Yeah.
So that's on Twitter. So you can follow her for the links, and I'll put the links in the show afterwards. Next time I'll do that beforehand. So I'm gonna pull up a Facebook and share the screen, and Victoria is going to take us down the journey of what she discovered in her research this weekend. Who is the Democratic Party? And we've been talking about this a lot lately. It's just that thing to be talking about. Especially, I find it interesting how the Democratic Party was so anti to, like, they were so hostile to people who wanted to go to the Capitol to redress the government, especially Lamont for his policies on the state, while the unemployment is skyrocketing to about 600,000. And people were out there protesting that, and a lot of the Democratic leaders were really pretty harsh, saying that people who did that should get COVID-19 and die. People who do that shouldn't be allowed health care. People who do that are irresponsible. And then comes, Black Lives Matter, and they're changing their tune in a big way. Now it's all good, and yeah, come on, we're gonna come out and protest with you. I find that to be rather phony, actually. And so I'm really interested to hear what you found as you dug deep into the Democratic Party. So I'm going to pull up some of her research. You guys are going to be able to see that as Victoria tells us the story. So here we go. Oops, wrong screen. Why does it do that to me sometimes? Crazy.
Just a quick fair warning, and I say this in the bottom of my post. There are some shockingly racist images
So just a
that
warning.
I dug up from the National Congressional Archives, and they are flyers from the 1860 campaign flyers from the 1860s all the way through to the 1950s. And they are quite racist. And I grappled with whether or not to even post them. But they are part and parcel to showing kind of the or lack of progression in the Democratic Party. So I just want to apologize if there's any offense. I know the sensitive nature of these photos, and it's totally on me. So, yes.
All right. I appreciate that disclaimer. Okay, so here we go. Let's jump right into it. So we've got the first one here, the Civil Rights Bill of 1866. Tell me about this, Eloise.
So, so one of the things that I read was, we hear a lot about the Civil Rights Act of 1967, especially now with the discussion on civil rights, really as it should be, at the forefront of the American mind. Uh, so I didn't know. There's a lot I didn't know. I didn't know that the Civil Rights Act of 1967, um, it it was already created in 1866. It our president at the time when the 1967 one was signed, what it actually was is they just decided to enforce the
What?
bill, yes, that was created
Oh,
by the Republicans.
so this
The Re-
is supposed to already have been part of what our laws were in 1866, and they ignored it. Did you hear that, guys?
JFK originally voted against the Civil Rights Act, but with such huge social pressure, he caved. But so one of the things that I noticed, the first thing that I noticed really while reading was that the Republican Party, when they were first formed through today, they were known as the radical anti slavery party. It was the Republicans that fought for civil rights. It was the Republicans that fought for women's suffrage. It was the Republicans who fought to free the slaves. It, in fact, the only contribution the Democratic Party made over a period of 100 years regarding the civil rights movement was they finally agreed to stop filibustering these acts. They, time and time again, voted vehemently opposed civil rights acts. It was the Republican Party that fought at every turn for African American rights, for women's rights, for the poor's rights. And here the Democratic Party is saying that we're the party of the people. Oh no. And so this first picture here, I'll just give an example. So this is the bill, the Civil Rights Bill of 1866, that happened uh, right almost at the time the Civil War ended, right when the Civil War was ending, and you can see right here. Okay, on this date, April 9th, 1866, the Republican House, overrode President Andrew Johnson's veto of the Civil Rights Bill. So Andrew Johnson is the is widely accepted as the most racist president in American history, 17th president of America. The Republicans at the time were fighting to get this bill passed, and Andrew Johnson vetoed it and was like, no, 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 no civil rights freedoms here. No, no, slaves will not be, they will not be given 4,000 acres and a mule. You know that saying. They will not be free. They will not. They will not have the life that Republicans are fighting for them to have. And Andrew Johnson believed through and through that slaves were not really human. And so he tried to veto that bill. And there was unanimous Republican support of overturning his veto. So the president, the Democratic president at the time, and the whole Democratic Party were fighting like tooth and nail to get this bill stopped.
Wow.
Which to me, and that's nothing. That's just the first. That's just the first post or the first picture.
Wait a second. Okay. So here to recap, and anybody who wants this information, please go follow Victoria. Her page is public, and we're just looking at this post that she put up on Monday about who is the Democratic Party. So that the Civil Rights Bill was there in 1866 and the Democrats were fighting against this, and then when it finally does pass, the Democratic president wants to veto it and not let it go through. Correct? I'm getting this all correct here. So
yes, ma'am.
wow. That's pretty heavy duty, very interesting. His history is really important. And so when we forget about history, we are bound to repeat ourselves because we need to know this. This is really pretty wild. Thank you, Eloise. Wow, you're blowing my mind again today. And we're not even going down the financial rabbit hole. Well, there's something coming toward the end of this. So you guys got to stay tuned because she's got a juicy golden egg.
And that little documentary there, or it's not little, this guy, and I'll just say this quickly, Dinesh D'Souza, he left India and brilliant, certified genius. He came to America for a better life, right? And he wanted so much to participate in the political air of America. He didn't know specifically every single law regarding campaign financing and all this. So when he came here, he donated money. The woman had no idea. He donated money to a friend's campaign, totally anonymously. He hadn't logged at this time. He finished this documentary. It was already done. It was out there, and he was being harassed by Democratic personnel. And so about a year after this documentary comes out, he gets arrested.
Wow.
For not logging some specific, like he didn't log a $200 something. I don't remember exactly the specifics. Not something anyone would ever be arrested for. They put him in jail for 18 months. N-
Wow.
Not really because of the campaign money, because of this documentary.
Wow, that's a really interesting story. Wow.
It's phenomenal and it's free, and all you have to do is click that hyperlink. Really phenomenal.
So it's right on her page, guys. And what's the name of the documentary for those on Twitter and YouTube that you're referring to?
It's Hillary's America,
Okay.
the secret history of the Democratic Party.
Very interesting. I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. All right, let's so should we move on to the next slide here? So this is here I've got pulled up before let's see, let me move this out. Before Charlottesville, Democrats voted for racist policies for more than 100 years. Am I on the right slide?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we're gonna pull that right up so you guys can see what I'm talking about, and Victoria is gonna lead us into another story about this and connect. Let's connect the dots. History is fascinating, and it's unfortunate that our school systems really aren't able to teach the local, like the history. It's all pre-described. That could be a whole another show about what
Oh,
on in schools because people don't know this information. I'm not gonna babble anymore. Let me have you tell the story. Go ahead.
so, when I put little arrows next to the points that, I mean, this whole article was wonderful, but I put little points. Uh, Now, this is real historical fact. This is not opinion. These are factual. This is factually based. So this article is just a great quick breakdown of how it really went, in terms of civil rights in America. And I'll just say a couple of these things next to the arrow. So Democrats voted against every piece of civil rights legislation in Congress from 1866 to 1966. 1967 was the first was the the Civil Rights Act that everybody knows about, right? The one people associate with Civil Rights Act, even though it was already there, they just decided to enforce it. So next, Democrats voted to keep African Americans in slavery, opposing the 13th Amendment, which officially freed the slaves. Only four Democrats voted for it. Republicans also passed the 14th Amendment, granting slaves U.S. citizenship. Democrats voted against that. Republicans passed the 15th Amendment, giving slaves the right to vote. Not a single one of the 56 serving congressional Democrats voted for the 15th Amendment. Not a single one. Now, all of this, I posted this article because it's very followable, but this is not information from articles. Like, this is real historical, archival, congressional library information. So, Republicans passed all of the civil rights laws of the 1860s, including Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the Reconstruction Act of 1867, when everything was a mess after the Civil War. And I couldn't believe this, but the Republican Party was founded as the anti-slavery party.
Wow.
That is right there. It speaks to who they were, right? When this started. The Democratic, and I'll just keep reading through, the Democratic Party was responsible for Jim Crow segregation laws and black civil codes that kept whites and African Americans separated at drinking fountains, restaurants, if they were allowed in at all, swimming pools, everything you know about segregation, Democrats, okay?
The black
Not the
was
Republican South.
I never heard of that before. I never
Yeah.
heard of the black civil codes. Now I know that they had like water fountains and um, black folks were supposed to go to the back of the bus and all this awful stuff. And I didn't realize that it was called Black Civil Codes and
Mm,
that this was the doing of the Democratic Party. I mean,
yeah.
wow.
Jim Crow laws were the umbrella of all the codings. So when you break a law, right, even today, there is a specific law code, right? Let's say, I don't know, theft is code 4.56 dot 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 dot. That's every black civil code had, it was a law. So if it had a number, just like we do today. And so every people think Jim Crow, but there was actually individual laws. Like if you used the same drinking fountain, using the same drinking fountain as a white person, that had a specific code. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
So, and there was a great movie recently, which I'm sure you've seen, Hidden Figures. I knew nothing of that, which really speaks to what you were saying about history is in the eye of the beholder.
mm,
So these women, these black women, I had no idea their role in the launching of the first space shuttle. Hugely important. They got them home, they got them there. And they're having to run 20 minutes down to the other side of the campus, the NASA campus, pouring rain, getting yelled at for not logging all their bathroom breaks. Well, it takes them 40 minutes to get there and back. That was because they had to use separate public bathrooms than whites.
no,
So that's
wait,
an example
if I
of the.
go back just a hair bit, just to make sure that I'm clear here. So
Mm,
you're saying that African American women, that they are responsible for bringing getting the shuttle into space? Like what
yes.
wow.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
They, if you, and if any of your listeners haven't seen that movie, it's, it made me feel like an ass because
Wow. What's the name?
I knew nothing of the role of black men and women in the real progression of science, math.
That is
Yeah.
amazing.
And this, I mean, this was not that long ago.
No, it really wasn't. So you hear that, guys? Black women are strong and beautiful, and God bless them. Because they, something that part of history needs to be widely known and celebrated. This is great. Thank you for sharing this, Victoria.
Yeah.
Really, pretty incredible. Wow.
Absolutely. And I mentioned this to you earlier. Even so, JFK voted against the Civil Rights Act in the beginning. The 19, he quietly, of course, as everything is in the political atmosphere, and it was a Republican, Senator Everett Dirksen from Illinois, who he wrote a Republican. He wrote tons of political legislation, making sure that the language was correct regarding, you guys, this is not civil rightsy enough. We need to put more to really enforce what the Civil Rights Act means. Um, and Ronald Reagan, who he created Martin Luther King's Day. I mean, he didn't create it. There was a whole movement around it, but he instituted that. And there was a lot of Republicans who do not get the limelight for that. And I think a great closing to this post is, but you don't hear the Antifa movement or anyone on
No. Did I lose you, Victoria?
talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you hear me? Absolute no apology necessary. This is actually a good comment to repeat. You don't hear the Antifa movement, who are not protesters, okay? They are not. They are violent anarchists, truly. You don't hear them or any person on the left talking about how the Democrats stood in the way of people of colors around.
Uh-oh, I'm having
You know,
for some reason. I'm here. Let me come back here. Sorry, Victoria. I'm having a technical glitch there.
no
You guys
problem.
can hear me. I'm having some technical glitches. Soon I'm going to have a better system here. My studio is going to run more efficiently. So I apologize. This is really good stuff. So bear with me. I don't know what's going on with the signal is getting shut up a little bit. So go ahead. Hopefully we've got it all working now. Technology is drives me crazy. Right back into it. Sorry about that, guys. Go ahead.
Well, that's really all. All I was saying is the Democratic Party is the party of racism,
Wow.
which they, they, I'm a registered Republican, but I have defended Democrats, like, because the truth is we need Democratic voters. We need them. We need the people who think they're voting for the party of the people. They're not, but we need them too, because all of us are being affected by this BS system.
Yeah. It's totally true. I find it really interesting how um how did how did it switch over to becoming what people have perceived in the last, I'd say, what, 30, 40 years of the Democratic Party as the party of the people? Because like when I was younger, when I first was 18, the first thing I went out and did was register to vote, because to me, being a woman and learning about the suffrage movement and what women did to get out, to be able to vote, also the black vote, how they also had to fight for their right to vote, and all the interesting history about the suffrage movement and right voting rights. And so I registered as a Democrat thinking that was the party of the people, even thinking, right, as and this is as
Mm.
a woman, even thinking that the Democrats were responsible for all of the rights, the civil rights that we have today, that it was the Democratic Party that fought for us. And now it's very interesting. And I've heard just a little bit about this from other people about it being the Republican Party. I knew that it was the Republican Party that fought in the Civil War. But I didn't realize how deep the history was, or what you were just explaining about how active the Democratic Party actually was to enforce and to continue with racist Jim Crow laws. That blows me away. It really, truthfully blows me away.
An interesting fact, and that'll answer your question about the big switch, which is essentially a myth, another great propaganda scheme. Did you know about 90% of the suffragettes were Republican?
Wow.
Democratic Party members fought so hard to keep women from their right to vote.
Wow. So
So,
it's all everybody, guys. You see this? Wait a minute. This was the party. Even though, like, and I'll go into what I thought of as women's rights. Like, that was the party I was going to be in when I was 18. That's what I registered as a Democrat. I was for women's rights, for all equality, and just all the things that we think of today as the Democratic Party. Wow. Okay. I'm going to stop babbling and let you finish and answer the question.
yes, and so the big switch, 4 years. And I didn't know this. The Democratic Party was founded off a lie. They are the master manipulators. For example, Andrew Jackson. Uh, he was he ordered the murder of thousands of Native Americans. He was a Democratic president. He raped dozens of women, murdered countless slaves, and he was a Democrat, staunch Democrat.
Wow.
The KKK was founded by a Democrat, a staunch Democrat, Nathan Bedford Forrest. The KKK was started as a sort of secret, but not secret at the time, military arm of the Democratic Party. So when the KKK went in and lynched and burned and murdered, uh, they were just following Democratic orders.
Wow. This is
Yes,
so wild.
the history is so deep. So back to the big switch. Now, the and they've been working like this for years. They would run a con, okay? For example, the Civil War, and they now people don't know this because of the con. They it was not the Republicans fighting to keep slavery. The Democratic North fought. They were the instigators of the Civil War. They would not give up their slaves. And so, really, the whole thing started kind of because of the Democrats, like everything these days. And so, when they lost the Civil War, right? Or when the Civil War kind of tore, I said that incorrectly, when the Democratic North lost the Civil War, the party members, because slavery was abolished. So the Democrats were like, well, what are we going to do now? You know? So and this is back to the big switch. So over the years, there was talk about, okay, how do we reshift the political identities of the country? And at this time, the electoral voting uh, process was being developed as states were really being formed. So the Democratic North, they lose the Civil War. They're like, shit, we got to get rid of all our slaves. And so they decided, well, we need to take over. We need to take things over in a new way. So they sent several. I think it was between 8 and 10. Okay, that's not a big switch. A big switch is hundreds. It was like 10 Democrats. They sent those Democrats to the South, these racist mofos, Democratic Party members, because they knew they needed new votes in a different part of the country because they were shamed, they were embarrassed having lost the war. And it's so funny. Everybody thinks the South was the bad guys and the North were the good guys. No, no, no.
Yeah.
And so these new Democrats, or they're not new, but they relocate to Florida. And that's why Florida is seen as when a president needs electoral votes, you got to win Florida. you know? And so these Democrats go to the South, they go to Florida, and they begin to prey, like they always do, on the poor, the disenfranchised. They say, we want to give you social services. We want to give you money. Now and these people at the time are all white, or a lot. The areas they were going were white disenfranchised families. Now, these people who were being manipulated and preyed upon, they didn't really know what they didn't know about politics, but they said yes to what these scheming Democrats were offering. And so slowly, this group who didn't even know they were racist, they were not racist, right? But those Democrats brought the racist propaganda ideals with them.
So, like with this slide, would we say, like, I'll pull this slide up, which,
Yeah,
sorry, some of these images are pretty offensive. Um,
they all,
these are definitely offensive images. So tell me about this propaganda that the Democratic Party starts to use as the, to
yeah.
with this.
So and it's funny, or it's not funny, but the first thing I'll say about this is yes, the two in the middle and on the right are a long time ago. One of them, you know, they say what they say. They look how they look. They're very derogatory, very, and so both platforms, that is was that was like a little thing back in the day. They would call it the platforms, right? Who's on which. They didn't call it the parties. They called it the platforms. So now these middle two images,
Yeah.
everyone was the Republican man was white, both of them. So the men on the left were white and the men on the right were white. But because the Republican Party members who were fighting for what they called mingling of the races, they they depicted they depicted these white men in the most racially disturbing way towards black men and people. And I didn't know that a lot of Republicans were very intelligent black men. And the way they're depicted is not that way. So, and you see right here in the bottom picture where it says two platforms. I've underlined, let me zoom this. I've underlined radical because the Republicans were called the radical Republicans because they wanted rights. They wanted new rights for everybody. So this says now this is a white Democratic Party member saying this. His name was Hester Clymer. Every radical in Congress voted for, I'm going to modify that, voted for African American suffrage. Every radical in the Pennsylvania Senate voted for Black suffrage. And, no radical newspaper opposes Black suffrage. They're saying that the radicals want rights for people of color, and they're called the radicals, right? Which was just insane to me. And the photo on the right, Horatio Seymour served as the governor of New York in the 1850s and 60s, and he was the Democratic Party nominee in 1868 presidential election. This is what he writes on his flyers, man. This is a white man's country. Let the white man rule. Now, these are a long time ago. So people may say, oh, that was 100 years ago. We were blah. Okay, well, look at the picture on the left. Wake up, white people, before it's too late. You may not have another chance. This is from the 1950s.
Wow.
Okay. This political poster and advertisement was published in 1950 for the US Senate Democratic primary campaign. So they're still shockingly racist in the 50s. And I honestly don't think too much has changed in 70 years. They've just got better. They as at their propaganda game.
That that's a good point to bring up. They got better at the propaganda game, because I find it to be like, it's when we get down into the whole the systemic system, it's the corruption, it's the propaganda. The basic rules of our Constitution and Bill of Rights is a really amazing document, and I don't want to see people throw that out of the water, just throw the baby out with the bathwater, blaming the Constitution and a Bill of Rights, which are the very things that we can use to have to address these injustices, which we have done over time. And it definitely takes a battle, and we have to be diligent, because we have to fight against propaganda, we have to fight against being manipulated. And when I look at this, I look at Joe Biden and I'm like, are you kidding? And then he comes out with one of the most racist things I've heard any candidate say in my lifetime. I don't even repeat it, and I respect, that I just, what a jerk. That's all I got to say is what a jerk. I'm not going to beat it around the bush, because we've all know what he said. And wow, our battle is with the propaganda. I'm just amazed. I never saw these images before. I apologize, folks. Those are offensive. But the only way we're ever going to heal
Yes.
is to acknowledge our history and where we've come from. This just amazes me. And I see the propaganda today. It's really bad, and it's a very violent propaganda that's like an us against them kind of scenario. And I really see the Democrats feeling that quite a bit. I'm just, wow, your research is just really mind-blowing. Someone asked a question there. I think people are confused, and they think, oh, the North lost the Civil War. When you dig deeper into it, you'll see what Eloise is talking about. And what she means by that. It's something that I recommend folks to go on and check out her research and go dig deeper, because
And watch that documentary.
yeah. And
It's
say the title of it
it's
again for anyone who just tuned in. The title of that documentary again.
it is Hillary's America.
That's right. Hillary.
The yeah, the secret history of the Democratic Party. Now, I put that link in my Facebook because it is free on Pluto TV. You just have to know where to look. And so I put that up there. All you got to do is click on it and take you right to the movie.
Awesome. So let's move on. Let's move along here. So we're covering a lot of great detail. Wow, this is just fascinating. So I'm on to the next slide.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, when political paths diverge but old loyalties endure. And you've got this article here, and I'm seeing some stuff about Woodrow Wilson. I mean, we were talking about this with Annie Lamont and the Lamonts, and what I had found out this week about Ned Lamont is a trust fund guy. He's a trust fund kid, and his
Yeah.
grandfather, he's a big liar. I think he has more money than he admits to. This is like just insane. Like this governor is not a governor of the people, guys, and you got to stop voting for these types of people, because we're going to keep having the same old darn problems. Talk about systemic problems. This is a systemic problem. And Lamont, let's get into this. Is the deep stuff, especially for us folks in Connecticut right now. Yeah, let's talk about this.
Yes, and just one quick point to that person. The person who asked the question.
Yes.
Which, thank you for the question. Love questions. Um, total lie. Total propaganda. The South won the war. The Republicans won the war. It was the Democratic North, where we live, right? Mass, Connecticut, that lost the war. They were the slavery party. And they have done such a they changed an entire history.
Wow.
And that, unbelievable. So, and so hopefully that it really is a big lie, misguided misdirection. And I am well researched, and I didn't know that. So yes. Okay. So moving right along to Ned Lamont. So I'm just going to read these underlined parts, because they're perfect.
I'm pulling right up. There we
Yeah.
go. Go, girl.
and just to this was an op-ed piece from 2006. Now, I have a Tor browser. I don't always use it. I have two different browsers, but when I'm looking up some really, when I'm looking up, when I'm doing some dark digging, I use my Tor because the firewall is more impenetrable. Yeah. So I didn't find this on my Safari. Um, uh, Archived articles are typically harder to find. So I got up in my Tor and boom. So this is a 2006 New York Times article. So I'm going to read some of these underlines. But now people should read the whole article if you can, because mind blowing. So the first thing underlined here, President George W. Bush and Ned Lamont, the Democratic candidate for Senate, could not be more alike.
Oh my God.
So
Oh,
like,
going.
and I'm not saying all the Bushes are bad. Bush 41 did some good stuff for America. His son, yeah. But so yeah, that was the first paragraph. Then read on to the next page. Uh, like you and I were saying, Thomas Lamont owned the House of Morgan, which was one of the first institutions phenomenally financially successful on Wall Street. Okay, that's Thomas Lamont, Lamont's grandfather.
Lamont, guys, listen to this. Thomas Lamont, the House of Morgan. You know, J.P. Morgan and Chase. He's got more money than he's like. I saw an older article, and I think that's great. You got the tour. I've been wanting to set up the tour myself, so that's a way, guys, to get uncensored information. Julian Assange on WikiLeaks had that's where I had first ever heard of the tour. God bless Julian Assange. You should not be locked up. I don't want to get it all into that can of worms.
He's gotta be out now. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna do that.
So I'm glad that
That's
you
so
found
funny.
this article, but one like what I had was reading about him, and I just was really blown away that it was like 90 million. This is what they put as their income, and this blew me away. That they put anywhere from 90 million to 300 million is what they're worth. I'm like, how do you go from 90 million to 300 million?
The 90 million is on the books,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And the rest is like in the Netherlands Antilles, okay? So
And I think it's more than the 300 million. I think they are the one percenters. They are deep state category. They are heavily connected, and money up the just money. They're the money couple. All right, let's keep going through it.
yeah, yeah. So and Thomas Lamont advised President Woodrow Wilson. So they were like besties. Woodrow Wilson is well known as the most racist president in American history.
Wow. And
The most.
Woodrow Wilson, if we go back, and correct me if I'm wrong, so if we go back to like Jekyll Island in 1913, that's when we got the Federal Reserve, is Woodrow Wilson, guys. This is where how deep this goes. Look at the connection and connecting the dots, and talk about the deep systemic problems. It's not the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Don't throw that out. We can't just let our rights go to poo poo, okay? We need to defend and protect the United States Constitution, not the bad racists that took advantage of all of us, not them. We the people, united, will never be defeated. We the people, every race, color, creed, we the people. The real divide is this elite class. Let's keep going through it, Victoria.
Yeah. And I thought another great line was, I'm going to read this. Okay. Jonathan J. Bush, we all know the Bushes, owns a vacation home in North Haven, Maine, where the Lamonts have summered for decades. Okay. Must be nice. And then the next paragraph, I'll just read it. The current president, Bush 43, has been somewhat. Oh wait, no, excuse me. The sentence before. We have nothing. This is Mrs. Lamont speaking. We love her.
Yeah.
We have nothing against the Bushes, Mrs. Lamont said. We know many of them, like them. We have no problem with Bush 41. Well, okay. The current president, Bush 43, has been somewhat less generous in his assessment of Mr. Lamont. And if Bush 43 thinks you're sketch, you are sketch. Okay. Um, while he said he would not question Mr. Lamont's patriotism, he warned that it would be dangerous to do as Mr. Lamont has called for and leave Iraq too soon. Vice President Dick Cheney said Mr. Lamont's upset of Mr. Lieberman in the primary election might embolden Al Qaeda types or Al Qaeda, excuse me, whatever that. That's not fair to call Al Qaeda types. I don't know. There's a lot out there that I don't understand, but I think the message was, there's real danger and doing the plan exactly the way Lamont calls for it. Okay, so the next underline, Mr. Lieberman. I mean, Lamont upsetted Lieberman, right? He won, and so as undergraduates, the Bushes mostly went to Yale, the Lamonts to Harvard, which we knew. Ned Lamont, who Mr. Lieberman called a Greenwich millionaire. Announce the freaking party of the people, please. Um, Started, and my next slide, which we'll look at after, but the Greenwich Millionaire started a telecommunications company that provides cable and data, blah, 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 blah. I found the cable companies, and they are domestic and foreign stock companies. And he's made a friggin' fortune
Wow.
off the shares.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Ned So next underline, sorry, I know we're running out of time, but Ned Lamont's great uncle um, was suspected of being a Soviet enthusiast and was received a lot of people were pissed about his Soviet, you know, uh, proclivities. Okay, and then going on, it's this next paragraph I underlined. They were good friends. Ned's grandmother, what Ned Edward Minor Lamont, which is way more fitting, than Ned. Um, his grandmother was interviewed in part for this article, and she was describing the Soviet uh, preferring uncle, and she was talking about their relationship and described them as good friends. Okay, Ned's father, Edward M. Lamont, helped administer the Marshall Plan, which a lot of people say really caused a lot of financial problems in America. He also worked in the Nixon administration. We all know what happened with him, right? One of the most disgraced president in American history, and you can be sure that his whole administration schemed. Not just him. A schemer needs help. They need a team. So that's what Ned Lamont's father was doing at the time.
Wow.
So this,
You guys hear that? I mean,
yeah,
it's this. Wow. When you start to really look, and then I see him. Okay. So I wish I had a slide of that. I wish I could just pull that slide of him up right now, of him in the t-shirt I can't breathe. Okay,
disgusting.
and one of the things I had come across when I was doing some reading on Ned Lamont and Annie Huntress Lamont, which is big time. These people are from big money. Lamont is a trust fund guy. His great grandfather was the House of Morgan. Come on, guys. Why are we continuously putting these people in office? It's on us. And I want people to start thinking about locally and stop worrying so much about the federal election. Yes, that is important, but we ain't going to change nothing until we start changing our local legislators, our local legislation. Because I'm going to tell you, there are places in Connecticut where these politicians are running unopposed, and that's an outrage. Because we're not going to change anything as the people. If you say, "Oh, we're going to destroy it all, we're going to knock it down, kill it," you know what's going to happen? These really rich people are going to send in their military, their paid for private military, and anybody that will work for them.
Antifa, Antifa. No
Yes.
offense, there's some good Antifa
Yeah.
members out there, but just like the KKK, man,
Yeah.
they
True. So you don't.
they use them.
Yeah, no, we don't want to be under this a communist type rule or a fascist type rule where the government is totally overruling our lives. We want our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. Do not forget that. That is the most important document. We should treat it like our Bible, okay? Because that is the most important document for our core freedoms. We have lost control of the ship. The corruption has taken over, and we've really seen this history that Victoria is showing us. We have to guard against propaganda. It's a constant battle. It's never going to go away. It's never going to stop. There's always going to be that dichotomy of, you're going to have people that are racist idiots and hate and greedy, fear mongering, awful people, and you're going to have regular people that want to work hard and take care of their families and be good, decent citizens. So we're always going to have that battle of good and evil, to put it in simpler terms. Wow, we're really covering a lot of ground. Let's keep going, Victoria. We got
Yeah,
here.
and just one more point on something you just said. Connecticut was when the settlers came here in 1633, I believe it was. The Puritans, when they came, English settlers came here. Connecticut was the beginning of obviously America and the Native Americans, they're beautiful. They were here way before us.
Gosh, yeah.
But Connecticut kind of started the propaganda game.
Interesting.
Okay?
We are
They have
rebellious
been
beast.
Connecticut was finally received statehood, I think about 20 years later, maybe. Well, and it was the Lamonts, men like that, who and the Morgans and the Carnegies and the Rothschilds that set up the propaganda game. So this corruption has been around as long as Connecticut has.
Wow, that's a really fascinating. Wow, guys, you hear that? That is absolutely fascinating. And let me just say again for anyone who's just kind of come on in. So Victoria has all this stuff referenced, and you can go hop on her page. And I apologize, I should have put all this in the comments. We'll get together next week, and I'll take all your links and stick them in the comments for everybody, so they can just jump right on it. This is, she's not just talking off the top of her head and making it up. She's done the research, something you guys can do. She's even got the tours, so she's really going down deep and getting that research. We this is how we heal, seeing it and talking about it, because this is how we make a real change, that changes the system that we find ourselves in today. And if we don't do something, it's going to be lost forever. And I really do believe that we still can fight for our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. Do not throw that out as a bad document. I can't say that enough. Okay, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution is not Democrat, it's not Republican. Okay.
Yeah.
And yes, it was written by people that were not the greatest characters, and some of them had great minds, but they all got together and had discourse. Okay, yeah. And we could get into the whole history of the Constitution and all of that and how it came to be on another show. But,
yeah.
But because I think people, I think what's happening now, the propaganda thing is like, oh, if people are for freedom and liberty, they're white supremacists, and that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. It's not.
And I don't want to. I want to be clear. Republicans are not perfect.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, please.
But we need the truth so we can decide for ourselves. It is not their right to that information. So, yes. And so I know I'm blabbing, but the next
this is a great time. I appreciate it. So we got the next slide. So I've got the Secretary of the State.
Wait, I'm sorry. So the last picture after that article.
Oh, okay. Maybe I missed something. Let me go back one. Sometimes it flips too soon for me, or it's not recognizing it. Okay, so I had the propaganda picture. And then right after the article that we were just talking about, I come up with a Denise Merrill. There's something I'm missing, I guess.
Um, yeah, I see it. Maybe do you see? So it goes civil rights bill. There should be 5 pictures in total.
Okay, let me see.
If not, we can skip it.
There's the third. There's the fourth. Yeah, I keep coming right up on her. She's on the fifth. I'm not seeing the other one. That's interesting.
Weird. So I'm gonna share it with you real quick.
No problem.
Okay? Send just so you can see the background, even if viewers aren't able to see it. But it's really J Cherry sent.
Here, let me see.
So I sent that in a message to you.
Yeah, I'm still not seeing it.
All right, well, I'll just describe it. It is up there. I'm not sure.
Something that is it some kind of censor thing? It says sent an attachment, but it's not showing what. It could be I have bad service. It
Oh,
could also be my internet. So I apologize for that, guys.
well, what it is, I found net. So the article mentioned, New York Times article mentioned that I'm going to call him Edward Minor Lamont. It makes him,
Oh, here it is. Here.
yeah, it represents him better than Ned. But I found his cable company that they talk about, and one of them is Campus Televideo Inc. That is a domestic stock corporation. The other one, Apogee Telecom Inc. There are several listed at this address. This business address is for I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's Cogency, Cogency. It's a major corporation, and a lot of their companies get attached to the same corporate umbrella, so they can trade under any name they want.
Wow.
But yeah. And then Apogee Telecom is a foreign stock. So, and then if you look at the picture below Campus Televideo, it
Oh,
says
here
right
it is.
there.
I got it, Eloise. I'm so sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
Here we go. Here we go, guys. Here it is. So, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and if you research Campus Televideo, there's a couple fluff pieces about him selling the business. He just changes the names like they all do, right? You can see it right below here. Campus Televideo Inc., where it says it's below the first picture, right in the, it says name change history. And it says Lamont Television Systems Inc.
Oh my god.
Lamont Dental Systems. What? How did it go from a television Inc., a television channel, to a dental channel or a dental system? Because it's not, they just changed the business name, the business identifier, and boom. But it was never Campus Televideo, and it remains, it was always Lamont's whatever, Lamont's
Wow.
yeah. So the name is Campus Televideo Inc., but when it first started, it was Lamont Digital Systems. Oh gosh, I think I said dental systems. My bad. But it was Lamont Digital Systems, and so, or television systems. So every few years they'll just change the name so that they can continue their stock game, their stock scheme.
So when they're changing the name,
Mm-hmm.
the advantage in the stock seem because I get confused about this. So they change the name and it gives them an advantage. They're trading it more, or they're
Well, so And they tell you this right on the state website. They tell you how to avoid detection. Okay.
What?
You seriously, I'll post that. I'll upload that picture. Um, so when our business, Connecticut's another state like Delaware, right? It's real freaking easy to start a business. Now, when someone comes, let's say, for example, Marianne Hanley, she wants to pay for her new $1 million home, and she wants federal funding to do it. So she will start a business, a limited liability company, an LLC, or an Inc., an incorporation, um, or a LP, a limited partnership, and they'll just register the business address to their home because that's, well, what it is. That's where it is. That's where the money is going. So, and then eventually, say they purchase common stock. There's a difference between types of stock. There's preferred stock, there's equity stock, common stock, restricted stock. Certain stocks cost more, right? So a common stock is going to be cheaper than a restricted stock. And take campus or take Lamont Television Systems in 2000. It was it was probably a limited liability company, but in the state of Connecticut, you only have to you register your limited liability company, which is the most reputable company, but you type of company, because it's really hard to fudge federally documents related to limited liability companies. They do it, but it's harder. So he registers for this business. You only have to wait, and this is what they tell you on the website, about a week. The state clears your paperwork. As soon as the state clears your paperwork, you are able to re-register your company. And you don't have to re-register it with the feds. You only have to register it with the state. So you will see, if you look at the progression history of these companies, you'll see, oh, well, on April 7th, 2000, it was a limited liability company, but then 3 weeks later, it was a stock incorporation. It's very common to do that in Connecticut. So they set up their company, they use stocks, but eventually they will need a new, eventually people catch on, not state people, because, or maybe auditors, whatever, outside auditors, lawyers. So every so often, every 10 or so years, they change the name
Wow.
and people lose track again.
That is so dirty and dubious and terrible. Guys, do you hear that? I mean, we got to stop putting people like this into office.
Yeah.
We're never going to change anything. We keep putting these people into office. I mean, what a journey we've been on today, and really still just scratching the surface to even just get deeper into this. I really appreciate the way you broke down the different types of stocks.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that, the different varieties, and that they rely upon our ignorance in this financial world that they've created that's full of corruption that benefits them.
This busy world. Who the heck? 40 hours, stressed, tired, and people aren't just working, they have other things and this and that. People don't even know that they have to dig,
And you
that they should dig. They don't know that. And I didn't. I had to have this heinous experience with the Medicaid system before I started digging, or this never would have come about.
I appreciate how you've been digging. I'm sorry how you had to figure out the way to start digging and thinking about it. I think that is, a lot of us can say that brought me into activism was, having a personal experience and having starting to look and saying, wait a minute, there's some fundamental rights that the state of Connecticut is trying to take away from me, like trying to inject me with a shot I don't want.
Yeah.
so
Yeah. But
so
they do it, they make it seem like a good idea. Whatever they're selling, like COVID,
yeah,
right? In the moment, and again, I know, oh, COVID is scary and terrible, and I'm so sorry for all the losses. But freaking 2 weeks ago, we weren't allowed to leave our homes. We weren't even allowed to look at a beach, right? There was every Democratic official was screaming, COVID dangers. Now it's all about the protests. Get out there and vote. So it's like it's really about the sell. And when you just got to look for the story behind the story. If
amen.
something looks too wild there, just spend 5 minutes on Google and you will find really reputable articles about some of this BS that goes on.
Yeah. It's totally true. I've been saying that it the information is out there, and don't let anybody tell you that researching is some kind of like, you can't research, you can't have a mind of your own, you can't look.
Conspiracy theorist,
Yeah, and don't worry about all that, because that's one of the other things that I'm seeing today. The language and the propaganda that is happening in our country right now is extremely scary. It's very toxic. It's very divisive, pitting people against people, using just like what we saw with those awful pictures that they were using with the propaganda. They have a whole new if you're Russian, or you're for freedom, or you're for liberty, or any of those things, like all of a sudden you're a bad person. If you question medical, if you're for medical freedom, or you question the medical establishment, we could go all the way deep into the medical establishment and the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and how we have this system of medicine now. There's so much that we can peel, and I think that we need to do that. What a great journey!
Oh,
Definitely have gone over
I got a
today on
lot of good details about, the beginning of America, all that. People really think that they're kind of mythical, right? That the Carnegies, the Rothschilds, did they even really exist? Oh,
oh,
you know, so yeah, there's so much, and not just power, right? It feels good when you learn and you read for yourself and you're not just, it's
just
very empowering and I really recommend it. I know research, it's the last thing I'll say. I'm sorry, I'm getting tangenty.
okay. We
I know
made today.
that the ability and even the being granted the freedom to research, that is a, a so many people don't have the internet or a computer. I am blessed and white privileged or privileged, don't have to be white to have the privilege. And so I sit at home with my Mac computer and like my cell phone and those are, so I know that I have opportunities and blessings that way too many people don't have. And so research, and so I kind of do it for a lot of the people who don't really, they can't really, and so that's what we got to do. If you have the ability to speak up, if you know laws, you just don't worry about the pushback, right? Like, it's our duty as Americans to share what we learn. I didn't want to share those flyers, those heinously racist flyers. I was afraid. I didn't want to be disrespectful, but I just felt like it was such important, had such historical value. Don't worry about how you're going to look because people are going to say what they're going to say regardless. And the people that matter, the people that want to help will be right alongside you.
Amen to that. What a great journey we had today. So we'll be live again with Victoria next week. And we'll be talking more about this, and we'll tie in other stuff. Like, it was great the way we did this history of the Democratic Party, and you brought it right back to Lamont. I want to keep putting shining the spotlight on the governor, because what he's trying to do to our state is very scary, and he's operating like a king with his court. And these are the deep state elites, guys. We cannot keep putting these types of people into office. And the best way to take action is to do it locally, from the ground up, from the roots up. That's how we make real changes. So yes, I all for your, going out and voting in the federal election, but I want you to start to look in your own backyard here in Connecticut, where we're coming from, and starting to look in your own backyard and saying who's running for your local Senate, your local state representative. Who are the people running in your district? Have you volunteered for them today? Is there anyone running? You should think about running next time. You've lost the time for this time, but every 2 years there's another election. And if you're in East Hartford, I'm pretty sure that representative is running unopposed. We should never, ever, ever have another election on the local level running unopposed. They also steal these small seats. I had a very rich man, Norm Needleman of the 33rd District, does not represent me or the people in the district like me or in my income bracket. He
Yeah.
in the Ned Lamont team. He paid $600,000 to win a little Senate seat in the 33rd District. Why? Because he knows and understands that at the root is how you change the system to work in your favor. He is trying to work the system in his favor, and Ned Lamont's favor, and Annie Huntress Lamont's favor, and all of their rich friends that don't give two hoots about your health. They don't give two hoots about Black lives. They don't give two hoots about any of us. They only care about the people in their own circle of rich friends. We are peons, peasants, them. Nothing. They don't care. And we need to change the system from within. Thank you so much, Victoria. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I just want to tell everyone, um, if they do go to my profile, there's a post on June 3rd, and it really shows how this is actively going on, how companies are being told and sold that they are companies, but they're actually $3 million homes.
Wow.
You know, COVID support companies, okay? Governor Lamont announced, had a press news speech about 4CT Corp.
Oh my God.
And they all the philanthropy stuff they were doing, philanthropy stuff they're doing for Connecticut. No, no, that is not a COVID support team. It is a $2.5 million, 7,200 square foot home in Weston. So yeah,
Let's dig deeper into that next
week.
Yeah,
For sure.
that's like she just dropped a bomb and we're closing out. Oh my gosh. She just dropped
This is going on actively, so we gotta look, we gotta search. I know. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Next Tuesday, 1 p.m. If we're running a few minutes late, bear with us. We'll be here at 1 p.m. next Tuesday. We'll dive in for some more stuff. So stay strong, Connecticut. Stay aware. Keep researching. And thank you so much, Victoria. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, next week.